Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to do an unboxing of this box of orchids from Akatsuka Orchids out in Hawaii. I'm a little bit nervous because this box has been in transit for 12 days. So I ordered this 10 days before Christmas and I put expedited one-day shipping through Fedex and I thought it would arrive on time, but it turned out that FedEx lost the package and this was pretty much stuck on a truck for a while and it's been very cold out in the 20s. I'm a little nervous, but let's see what's going on in this box. So my initial impressions of the way that this is packed, it looks like everything's packed very well. There's a ton of newspaper in here. Everything's wrapped individually, and it looks like things inside of the box wouldn't have shifted too much. I got a brick of sphagnum moss as well, but I'm really concerned about the health of these orchids since they've been in transit so long. So it definitely had a ton of packing material, which is great given that it's coming from Hawaii all the way to New York City. So I'm very nervous as I'm opening each one of these orchids. So I ordered an Oncidium, aka raspberry chocolate. So it's one of the Shari Baby hybrids. I got an Oncidium Big Shot High-Low New Year, I think it is. And then I also got a Dendrobium chocolate chip. So let's see what everything looks like. Initial impressions are that everything's packed really well. This Dendrobium, this is the Dendrobium chocolate chip. It has buds on it. It looks really fresh. Given that it was in transit for 12 days, I am just shocked. So that was the first orchid. I am literally shocked at how healthy it looked. So I'm very hopeful and excited that my Oncidiums are also looking that fresh and that good. But 12 days in the cold is a long time. So let's see what we're going to find here. So I will say the care that they took in packing this, props to Akatsuka Orchids. This is packed tremendously well. And I ordered all of these in spike, and Oncidiums tend to have very long spikes, so it came in a larger box. They insulated this very well. I think they gave it a really good chance. So as you can see, it's wrapped up in a ton of paper. That moss in that pot, I was expecting it to be bone dry and it was actually moist. So it looks like they watered the orchid. So there's a couple of things when they water orchids and it's being shipped in transit. Like I'm touching it, it's very moist. There's a couple of things that happen when there's excess moisture in a box for a long time, and there could be the orchid can be prone to fungal infections and such, especially in a box where there's no airflow. Things could get pretty bad really quickly. But as I'm inspecting this, and I will zoom in for you guys shortly, as I'm inspecting this, I'm not noticing any blemishes on the leaves. I'm noticing that things are looking fresh. The leaves don't look bad initially. So now I'm gonna take the paper off and then we'll inspect the buds, see if there's anything left there. Buds are usually the first thing to go, so I'm not super hopeful on the flowers or the buds on this, though I am a little bit excited because that Dendrobium chocolate chip did have buds. So I'm here taking everything out and I notice that there's still flowers attached to the spike and they look moderately fresh. So I'll take you a bit closer. I'm literally shocked at this point. These orchids, the flowers are a little droopy, but they're still fresh. And I think it's because that moss is a little bit moist. It didn't get bone dry. They did water it. The top of that spike is a little bit broken on top. In all, I'm shocked that the condition my Bolera came. I did not expect it to look that good. Now let's open up the Oncidium raspberry chocolate. This is the whole reason why I placed the order. I do like the Shari Baby type orchids, and this one has been on my wish list for a while now. So as I am taking the newspaper out, I'm pretty shocked at this one as well, since the flowers look so fresh. As you can see, these flowers, like you can't tell that they've been in transit for 12 days until we start digging deeper. You'll see that some of the buds on top, it looks like they started opening when they were in transit because they never fully opened because they never had a light source. Either way, with these buds, I am just very surprised. And just giving you a closer look at all of these orchids, this is the raspberry chocolate. You could see those buds up on top. It's an indication that they tried to open, I think, within the box, but didn't have any sun. The top of the spike broke, but that's expected. It's really hard to ship these orchids with long spikes without having issues. The leaves, they look nice and healthy. It has a new growth coming in. I am just shocked at the condition of this orchid. Now, the Dendrobium chocolate chip, I'm number one, I'm very impressed with the size of the orchid. I wasn't expecting an orchid this size. And number two, the buds on this is just phenomenal. I wasn't expecting to receive it still in bud. This was supposed to be in bud or bloom, but I wasn't expecting this. This looks like a very healthy orchid. I was expecting a much smaller one, and I was pleasantly surprised just to see the size and the amount of blooms that it has. This one's a really nice one. Moving on to the Bolera, this one, I'm just in love with the flowers. So these flowers are enormous. They look moderately fresh. You can tell that they've been through transit since they are a little bit floppy, but honestly, I'm still impressed over how they look despite being in transit for so long. You can see my hand in comparison. These are huge. So I'm looking forward to reblooming this in the future. This is just a gorgeous, gorgeous orchid. The same as the other Oncidium, the top of the spike looks like it broke a little bit, but overall, this orchid looks good. The leaves and the bulbs look great. I also saw 2 new growths when I inspected it deeper. So, about 24 hours later, I started noticing a couple of changes on my orchids, and then 48 hours later, it was evident that the orchids weren't going to stay as fresh as what I thought they'd be when I got them. So the raspberry chocolate started forming these spots on the leaves. It looks like it's indicative of cold damage from transit. So it looks like these orchids were impacted after all, and I had to chop some of the leaves off to get them to get that to stop spreading. I started noticing it 24 hours into getting the orchid, and it just kept spreading, so I just cut the leaves off. The same thing happened with the Bolera. This one took 48 hours to show, but the spotting just started appearing at the tips of the leaves. I reached out to the orchid nursery and they said basically just chop the leaves off. So that's what I did. And, you know, it's very disappointing. I did not want this to happen. I didn't think that the orchid would change so much, but it did. The dendrobium also, all of the buds within 48 hours, they all blasted. They all fell off. I started noticing a couple of spots on these leaves as well, but not as severe. So I'm leaving these leaves as is for now, but just keeping an eye on them. What disappointed me the most about the dendrobium chocolate chip is that all of the new growths look like they died off. They're floppy. So I don't know what's going on. I mean, obviously it was through some trauma, but hopefully I'll be able to salvage this orchid, and I hope that new growths will continue to come in and that it doesn't decline further. So this is the Bolera. You can see all of the leaves that I chopped off. I'm hoping that no more spots appear just because I've already chopped off like 4 different leaves. The good news is that it has 2 growths coming in. This one I may need to chop off as well. It's got 2 new growths coming in. I'm hoping that those growths will be okay. I'm not seeing an indication of spotting, but I did put some cinnamon on top of some of the what I think would be fungal infections. That's my Bolera. The flowers also dried up and I had to cut the spike off. As you could see, the spike wasn't there. The same thing happened with this Oncidium Sherry Baby, rather the raspberry chocolate. All of the flowers dried up within 48 hours, so I had to cut the spike. I cut the leaves. I reached out to the orchid nursery and they told me that I would need to cut off the leaves in order to prevent the issue from spreading. And I followed up with them a couple of days ago and I just said, hey, given that, these orchids look like they were very healthy, but it looks like the issue is with the transit. And that was FedEx's fault for losing the package for so long. And I asked them if they were open to sending me a replacement Oncidiums, so the Bolera and this raspberry chocolate. And I told them it doesn't need to be in spike. I would just feel better if I got a replacement just because I don't know if those spots will come back. I'm happy to report that they wrote back and they confirmed that they're going to send me replacement plants. I know that it's not their fault. This was FedEx's fault. This was an overnight package that they lost, and it was on a truck for 3 days, and the temperatures were well below freezing, so I knew I would run into trouble here, but I'd say I'm very happy with Akatsuka's customer service, and I definitely order from them again. I'll be posting regular updates on these orchids, so do subscribe to see how they do. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye!